how's it going, my fisters? A subscriber of mine requested I do a more in-depth, updated rollout guide for Dorado. They requested this like a good few months ago and I haven't got around to doing it, so we're doing it now. I need to quickly cover how the premise of this video works before we get into the rollouts. So, the rollouts are broken into 5 categories of difficulty, and I will be displaying the rollouts in category difficulty order, rather than the order that they would appear on the map. So I'm going to be showing all of the 1-star easy rollouts first, then the 2-star and so on. I'll be talking here and there if I feel there's something that needs to be covered, and I'll be explaining some of the techniques used, so don't get mad if you already know most of the stuff I'm explaining. I'm making this video for all audiences, Mr. Grandmaster Rollout Randy. If you like the premise of this video, I'd love to hear your feedback, and perhaps I could do the same for more maps in the future. If you didn't like this video, let me know why too, I'd love to hear. If you'd prefer to just watch the rollouts and not hear me blabbering over it, I'll be releasing a non-commentary version of this exact video as my next upload, so keep an eye out for that. That'll do it for the intro, let's get into the rollouts. Starting off with the 1-star difficulty rollouts. These are going to be very simple, not using any map geometry. These are good rollouts for beginners to get you used to using some of your abilities for movement purposes and to clear space, for practicing simple engagements and practicing simple disengagements also. Learning these things are very important in most of these rollouts and will be very much prominent in the later rollouts too. Heading into the 2-star difficulty rollouts, you'll begin to see a change of pace. These rollouts are primarily focused on movement, and a lot of these are what is called a setup rollout, which is where you use your abilities for a movement purpose to position yourself better to engage onto the enemy. You'll begin to see more tech being involved, which is short for techniques. Things like diagonal punches, which allows your punch to travel in other directions other than just horizontally. Bounces, which, well, you bounce off an object by releasing your charged rocket punch just before colliding with the object. And even what is called a stall spot, where you're able to get your character stuck on a sliding surface, which is really just another form of a setup rollout. You'll need to practice your fundamental techniques, like those I have listed, to grasp a better understanding of how and when you should be using these. Consistency is the key here, so make sure that you're able to nail these down before using them in your competitive games, then being avoided by all 11 other players. The 3-star difficulty is the most abundant of them all when it comes to rollouts. These rollouts are similar to those in the 2-star difficulty, however they are a lot more punishing if you fail them. This category introduces some new techs like downwards diagonal punches and diagonal slide punches, 2 fairly common techniques used in advanced rollouts. These rollouts primarily focus a lot more on your timing of the actual rollouts, and also introduce using your movement keys a lot more during the rollouts. These rollouts overall require a lot more communication with your team. You can't be using these rollouts without your team's help. It's your job to either listen to when your team are engaging, or tell your team to engage at a specific time which benefits your rollout. Like I said, these rollouts are a lot more punishing, so make sure that you're never engaging alone, and you always play around your team. These are some of the most useful rollouts that you can do that aren't very difficult to pull off. This category has a good mix of compatibility and unpredictability, so a lot of these rollouts are useful even in the higher brackets too. Now, the 4-star difficulty rollouts. This is probably the last of the somewhat useful to learn rollouts, and even then, some of these are perhaps not even worth it. A lot of these rollouts will require me to individually explain them because there are a lot that goes behind some of them. This difficulty set of rollouts requires you to not only be able to communicate with your team's positioning, but also communicate with your team's ability cooldowns. Primarily D.Va's defense matrix if you're running dive, and Xayah's projected barriers if you're running a Xayah based composition. Some of these rollouts are also composition dependent. Some of the rollouts showed at the beginning are better to run with dive, and some with Xayah based compositions, and so on. This is another Doomfist technique called a super jump or void spot, depending on what you wish to call it. Aiming between these cacti and punching whilst jumping will force your character upwards due to the shape of the cacti and there being nothing to collide with. This is very similar to a diagonal punch earlier, but you aren't aiming for the flat roof part, no, you're aiming for the corner section of the roof. This will increase the height you gain, allowing you to engage from the even higher roof. This is a downwards diagonal slide punch. You're using the slanted surface on the wall to curve your punch downwards. This is a great engagement to use if you have payload control on this part of the map. And finally, this is what is called a fake out. If you see someone come from the stairs and you're on the high ground, you can trick them into thinking that you're disengaging, when in reality, you're looping around to surprise them from behind. Finally, 5-star difficulty rollouts. These ones, the vast majority of the time, are not worth performing in game. The only reason you'd want to learn these is if you're a content creator and you want clips for your Doomfist rollout montage. That's it. There are only 4 rollouts I'm going to show in this category, so I'll do my best to break it down on how to perform them individually. The first one is a first point defense rollout. Position yourself in front of this little stone bubble, charge your punch, jump, and release your punch just as you reach this bubble thing. The next step is to turn punch right, just before you hit this wall. You have to do it as late as possible to gain enough height to clear this roof. Then slam as you land on this top roof part and hope that you hit someone. The second rollout is primarily an offensive rollout on point A, but you can use it defensively too, I suppose. Head over to this building and behind this small roof section. Move as close to it as possible, then jump whilst holding forward. You'll want to hold backwards as soon as you reach the top of the sliding roof section until you come to a stop, to prevent you from sliding off the other side. When you're stopped on this flat segment of the roof, not moving for 4 seconds will make you bounce in the air. Aim your crosshair towards the peak of this roof and begin charging your punch on the 3rd second. As soon as you bounce in the air, hold left and release your punch just as your bounce begins to fall. When you reach this roof segment, turn punch towards the right as you hit the top of the roof, and it should give you just enough height to clear the lip of the roof, setting you up for a slam. The third is again an offense rollout on the first point of Dorado. Once you clear them off the high ground, head over to this small area where the defenders usually hold. You're going to be jumping, then uppercutting, then punch jumping into a balance spot. The balance spot is this tiny roof lip on the building adjacent, so aim for that when you uppercut and punch. When you land on it, it will try to force you out of one of the sides, and so you must counteract this movement with the opposite movement key, or by looking in the opposite direction and holding forward. In this case, it was trying to push me off to the right side, and so I looked slightly to the left and it countered it out. Once you're here, you can charge your punch and use this spot as an easy roof clearance to set you up for a slam on the backline. The final spot I will show is a balance spot on the second point of Dorado. Position yourself on the high ground and bounce off of the corner of the plant holder. With the trajectory from the bounce, try to center yourself with the building next to you and then uppercut. This will make it easier for you to land in the center of the balance spot without being pushed out. You'll be aiming to land on the center of the curved roof. Just before landing, counteract the forward momentum from the uppercut with an equal but opposite movement input, as to not slide right over the other side. This is quite a difficult balance spot, and so you will almost always be making very slight adjustments with your movement keys, as to counteract the minor shifts that the roof will make to you. This is an unexpected engage angle to take, which will grant you a free 125 slam on the backline. I'd say this one is probably the only somewhat minorly useful spot in the 5-star difficulty category, but the rest are just a little insane really. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you for all your support, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Oh, that is the most disappointing thing in the world, man.